So good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to being here and being now. And here we are at Ratnagiri Retreat, this place which is a place that Hannah and I live and share with others like yourselves on these wonderful occasions. And certainly today we have a very fortunate occasion to share with Venerable Ajahn Tiradhammo. Some of you have met him before, certainly on Thursday night and other occasions that he's been here, but we haven't had him here for a few years since COVID happened. So it's wonderful to have him back to share some teachings and guidance for our day on the theme of the process of self-making, and more specifically what he has as the theme of his book, Beyond I-Making, which has just come out. And so those of you that wish to get a copy of the book can do so, and also maybe get it signed as well, if you like. And just as a bit of a background history, Ajahn Tiradhammo has been a Buddhist monk for 50 years.
Yeah.
50 years, half a century. Doesn't look that old. So initially in Thailand and spending years with Venerable Ajahn Chah, a very famous Thai meditation master, and then to England, with the branch monasteries of Ajahn Sumedho, where I first met Ajahn Tiradhammo when I was a monk, and then the Ajahn was the abbot of Dhammapala Forest Monastery in Switzerland, where we spent time together. Later on, the Ajahn was invited to be the abbot of Bodhinyana Monastery in New Zealand. They needed an abbot there, so he was there for seven years. And after that, some time traveling around, caretaking various monasteries when the abbots needed a break to go on retreat and so forth. And more recently, Ajahn Tiradhammo has been the senior monk abbot at Wat Buddha Dharma in Sydney. So fortunate to have him so close, and to be able to have him back to offer some teachings and guidance. And certainly our history goes back 35 years when I first met the Ajahn, so it's wonderful to maintain that connection and be able to share him with yourselves. So for this day, a day of mindfulness, meditation, reflections, sharing together, and sharing some food together. So thank you for bringing the food that you have brought. And there's a number of people that weren't able to make it today that were on the list to come, but for various reasons weren't able to be here. So we share our blessings with them, but also appreciate our own good karma in being able to be here and make the most of this meditative day. Just as a bit of information, we'll have the meal at 11 o'clock because Buddhist monks need to finish their meal by 12 noon. So we'll, and for that, the Ajahn will go outside. I'll offer some the food to him that you've bought, and then after that, yourselves can partake of the food. We'll share that until 1 o'clock, and then have
12, I think, isn't it?
12 o'clock, yes, 12, sorry, not daylight saving anymore. 12 o'clock, and then further teachings and guidance, maybe a bit of a tea break mid-afternoon, and then finish at 3 p.m. If people need to leave before then, that's fine, but we'll have our formal finishing at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Also to mention, as Justin may have mentioned, the next Meditation Day retreat will be here on Sunday the 19th of May, so in about 5 weeks time, which is my 60th birthday. So I invite you to come along to my birthday, do some meditation.
Bring a cake?
Maybe.
Oh, don't have too many cakes.
So if you may have already ticked yes to come along for that, or otherwise I'll send out a newsletter saying, hey, the next retreat day is the 19th of May. So if you do want to come, just let us know, get onto the list for that. And also the Thursday night drop-in meditation group, as many of you do come to that. For those of you that haven't, every Thursday night meditation group here from 6:30 to 7:30. So plenty of opportunity to practice meditation, practice the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, and realize peace and freedom. So thanks for coming along and sharing our day. And Ajahn, we invite you to share some teachings and guidance with us.
Okay, so where to start? This was sort of the theme was around my latest book, Beyond Eye Making, which is 330 pages, so I don't think I can summarize it in a couple hours. But anyway, I'll try and give a little bit of an overview, general overview. The Buddhist teachings, if you really want to pursue it, of course, requires quite a bit of in-depth investigation. And if the different ways that the result or the purpose of the Buddhist teachings can be explained, I would say for the benefit of this context, the purpose of the Buddhist teachings is to realize selflessness, or what is beyond the self. And I think actually this is the purpose of all religions. All religions are trying to guide people to this realization, and they have different ways of explaining it, and of course different techniques or different processes of how to develop it or pursue that particular goal. So the Buddha has a particular approach to it, as you may recognize, and you can say this saying selflessness beyond the self, but what is the self? It's such a vague term. So the Buddha defines it in his own specific way. Most specifically, you can say that he refers to I-making, mine-making, and an underlying disposition to conceit. There's these three kind of aspects to self, if you like. Different ways you can explain it, self. Psychology has their own ways, I guess, but we're using the Buddhist template at this time. So while John has on the brochure here, it says the process of self-making, but I'm more interested in beyond I-making, how to unmake this attachment to self. So I don't know what you prefer. You want a better self or beyond self?
Beyond.
Okay.
Both.
Yeah. The most common explanation of the goal of the Buddhist teachings is to go beyond suffering. But behind that, it is a wrong relationship with the self, which is the source of our suffering. And one of the Buddha's unique insights was that unless we get to the very source of our suffering, we're never going to be able to uproot it. It's a very profound insight, actually, because most people, when they have suffering, what do? You try and get rid of it, you try and rationalize it, you try and fight with it, rather than look at it and try and find the source of it. So we're kind of wasting our time. We're looking in the wrong place. And just having this insight, the only way you can realize the cessation of suffering is to find the root of it. So as I'm saying, we go back to the root of suffering is the self, a wrong relationship with the self. So this is a topic which I have been researching for the last 6 years. And I started off, of course, trying to find the Buddhist teachings or trying to develop the Buddhist teachings to reduce my suffering. And I made a lot of mistakes, as we all do. But so finally, after about 50 years, I found out that the source is in the self. I found that out before that, but and the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha was teaching in a variety of contexts, and so we talk about, just for example, what the self is. It's not actually clearly delineated in the Pali Canon, the Buddhist scriptures. So I had to search through the whole Buddhist scriptures to find out relevant passages which can kind of tease out the details of this. The Buddha gave quite a few meditation techniques. People would come to ask him questions, and so he'd give them advice and maybe meditation practices to do. And then most of them, at least in the early days, most of them quickly were enlightened. Today, we're a little bit far away from the Buddhist teachings and his charismatic personality. And so we have a different way of thinking too, much more different way of thinking than at the Buddhist time. So we need a little bit more detail, I would say, to tease out what the Buddha was really talking about. And some of these teachings they're preserved in we call the Pali Canon, which is the Buddhist scriptures for Theravada Buddhism, and it's preserved in the Pali language. So even the language was based upon a certain cultural understanding in the Buddhist time. Like just the word for self, for example. The word for self is one word for it, for self in its various contexts. The word atta is self. So it meant both the conventional self. You say, you refer to yourself, oh, I'm feeling like this. But the same word referred to the ultimate self. You can say that self, which we would call a soul in English, probably. So in English, we have two words for this. There's self and a soul. In India, they had one word for it, atta. So then it got a bit confusing. So, when I first began to translate the scriptures, I translated the not self aspect as not self soul. Try and bring in these two, but it was so clumsy. After 4 years, I kind of chucked it and go find a new one. So now I translate this very particular Buddhist teachings of anatta, which is literally not self. I translate it as no permanent self. People got very confused by this when it translated it literally to English, no self. I got confused. I mean, here I am, and you're saying there's no me? What do you mean, here I am? But there is a conventional self. Of course, I have a sense of a self. Once I was, my early days in Thailand, I was meditating, just watching the breathing for many hours, many days, for about 2 or 3 months. And one day, this visitor came to the monastery, and I was staying there was a monk staying above me, and I was down below. So they came to see this monk, and he said, "Oh, go downstairs to the tea room where I was living, you see." And the man walked down the stairs, and he walked in and didn't see me sitting on the floor meditating, deep in absorption, on the verge of enlightenment. And I heard him come down the steps, and I thought, "Oh no, it can disturb my enlightenment." Anyway, he walked in. I opened my eyes, and he walked in and looked around, and he saw me sitting on the floor. Oh, hello, I'm Joe Smith. And I kind of got up, I stood up and said, and I couldn't remember who I was. I'm breathing. Let me check my passport. Let me see who I am. So I was so absorbed in just watching the breathing, all this sense of identity and all the references to self faded away to the background, just breathing. And it was a real big shock to come back. And of course, when I recognized who I was, finally it came back to me, oh, I'm so-and-so. And then all the problems came back too. Me with my backache, and me with my visa expiring, and me with, so please just let me go back to the breathing again and forget myself. So it was quite a common experience, I think, in spiritual circles, especially in the Buddhist time. The practitioners then, mainly the Brahmanical tradition then, were very adept at samadhi, with deep concentration. Those who were listening to John's explanations last about samadhi, right concentration, right collectedness. It's really being able to focus attention on one particular object. And if you develop this enough, you can realize unitary consciousness. Initially, we're born into a world of subject and object. So in meditation, the subject focuses on an object. You keep focusing and focusing and focusing. Subject and the object come together, and you have unitary consciousness. And then you forget yourself. There's no more subject and object, briefly. The trouble is, it's very limited. You eventually have to come out of it. You have to go to the toilet. You have to eat and drink, back to subject and object. Me eating, me drinking, whatever. So it's very temporary. So the Buddha practiced this very diligently, and he realized very advanced states of this absorption, but at one point he realized this is not the way beyond suffering. So he changed his approach, using a basis of collectedness, calmness of mind. He brought in the investigation called insight meditation, investigating the nature of this self, the subject that you come back to again and again. What is it? And only by recognizing the way it really is, which is, you begin to see it, it's just a process, continuously going on, ongoing process. But it's so subtle, we mistake it for the real thing. So most people, when they think of themselves, do you think of yourself as a process? Only if you got something to get rid of, huh? This suffering's not mine. This tax is not mine. This whatever problem's not mine. But when it's something pleasant, that is mine. That pleasant thought, that is mine. Yes, I'll take hold of that and I'll hang on to it and develop it and keep it and put it away for a rainy day. And but does it work? How long can you hold on to your happiness? It's a process. Yeah, it arises because of stimulus response. So basically, the Buddha realized that there is a sense of a self in process, and which if you don't look carefully enough and investigate carefully enough, you mistake for an object, something solid and permanent that you try to hold on to and defend, and you're out of the flow of reality. So you're constantly in conflict. The conflict is called suffering. When you can learn to flow with the processes, then there's no problem. But this requires quite a bit of practice, I would say, investigation, understanding, and actually trying to attune to that process directly, because we are programmed to look at subject and object. We're born into a dualistic world. So in order to understand the process of cessation of I-making, as I mentioned, the Buddha taught about you have to get down to the source of where the I-making comes from, the source of it. So this is where this theme of the process of self-making comes from, I would say. And just following the Buddha's approach, the Buddha's template, if you like, I designate 4 different stages. Of course, it's not like it's, definite stages. It all flows in together, but it's helpful to kind of tease it apart a bit to be able to observe it more carefully. For most people, it's just, here I am. Where did I come from? Blah, 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 all kinds of theories and, past life, future lives, whatever, spaceships, whatever. Came from the planet, whatever, so. but just try to observe how this process actually begins to materialize, if you like, or come into existence. So that the very first stage it's already kind of like a pre-given. The Buddha says we have a predisposition to conceit, to self-reference things. And I just say that it's like we're born into a dualistic world. The very young child comes into existence, and then gradually the world kind of coalesces into object and subject. The young child opens the eyes and there's, hazy first probably. There's a world out there, And after a little while, I'm separate from the world. Food has to come from out there into here. It gradually begins to materialize. They say, I think most psychologists say about 4 years of age before the so-called self kind of takes development. You can say it's a self then. But so the Buddha just says that that's the way it is. We're born into a dualistic world, and the kind of scary thing is that unless you understand this and investigate it, you're gonna stay with duality all the time. You're gonna stay with subject, object, and you're gonna live in ignorance, basically. You're looking upon the world ignorantly, with a fixed self, looking at a fixed objects outside. And of course, I think most of us, if you do a bit of meditation, you realize you don't stay the same. That doesn't stay the same, So where is really the object out there? Where is the subject here? Where is exactly this body? This body is just chemical processes going on continuously. I mean, I wish it would stay 21, but, or do I don't know. I was healthier physically, but I wasn't so wise. Made a lot of mistakes, so, but I have no control over that. This is just the body just does its thing, And so it's an ongoing process. And so where exactly is the body? Is this body, I know it's not 21 anymore. I mean, sometimes I forget and run up the stairs and then, okay, I'm not 21 anymore. Okay, maybe I'm 24. It's hard to admit that you're 75. I'm getting more used to it. But I mean, but of course we still relate. You know, our mind has a default back to this way of seeing things or understanding things in subject object. See? So we just take that as a common basis. Recognize that that's the way it is. Okay. And then the second stage is the beginning of the thought I am. So there is a subject, we're born into subject object, and then at a certain stage, and maybe it is at the 4-year stage, I don't know, where the self says, the little baby says, oh, I exist. I am a body. And I can then scream louder to get some more food and, you know, blah, blah, whatever the story begins. And the Buddha, the cause of the I making, the beginning of I am, the Buddha puts down to the sense perception when there is sense contact. And in Buddhism, there are 6 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the 6th one is the mind. So there's a physical organ, a physical eye sees an object, and the reality is there is seeing. But then a little voice, you might notice, you can try to observe this in your meditation perhaps. A little voice comes along and says, I am seeing. Already the first stage in ignorance. What is the I that's seeing? I know the I that's seeing, but what's the I that's seeing? Where did it come from? What is this I? It's a ghost, you know, it's a conception, the Buddha said. Just brought up, just conceive of something, you just brought it into imagination, you imagined it and you believe it. But the reality is there's just seeing. And then there is, as the perceptual process goes a bit deeper, there is just the seeing, and then there is processing of that, cognizing. I'm seeing, you know, pillar, you know. Then there is thinking about it maybe, oh, this is holding up the roof, thank goodness it's not bulging, is it? Thinking goes on, and then if you aren't very careful, this thinking can turn into what's called elaboration or proliferation. The thinking takes off, and it's just blah, 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 and what have I got about poles? I don't know. You know, I'm way down the line somewhere making fantasy stories about poles or something I have seen, you know, and it just started off with just seeing a color and a shape. It's all your eye, your physical eye picks up the data of shape and color. It's processed in the brain, in another part of the brain called cognition. There's some kind of familiarity with it. The cognition is related to memory, so that you can actually, you know, I assume that's a pole, right? You know, that's the last time I saw something like that. It was a pole, you know. It could be a fishing rod, it could be what? It could be a lot of things, but it looks familiar, it looks closely like a pole. And if I get it reinforced with somebody, is that a pole? Yes, okay, right, okay. I got that much right. Because perception can be very, very badly distorted. There's actually quite often mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures the distortion of perception. You know, it depends upon how your mind is conditioned. You know, I don't know if anybody's read books by Oliver Sacks. It's quite some time ago, but he writes not quite compassionately, but he explains very carefully about different distortions that people have in their minds. You know, one of his famous books was The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, wasn't it, or something? Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's how distorted your perceptions can get. You know, so you watch out where you put your hat. Huh? We don't have hats, do we? Well, we do. Sun hats, yeah. But some of these distortions, I mean, those are really extreme distortions due to maybe imbalances in the brain chemistry and stuff. But just in ordinary life, we all have our biases and prejudices. Do you like it or not? I explained, you didn't wear your red shirt today. Yeah, you explained on Thursday how I noticed a little bit of aversion to the color red, you know, nothing, nothing serious. I mean, I'm not going to start a campaign to anti-red campaign or something, but, I just noticed that I look at colors, kind of soft colors like greens and browns. Maybe that's why I'm a forest monk. Monks don't wear bright red. Bright reds or yellows, we don't, well, ochre anyway, but not bright yellow anyway. But anyway, maybe that's why I became a monk. I don't know where that came from, deep in my psyche. I just wanted to live with people who wear brown colors. But that's in the background. Somehow we get these different biases and prejudices, preferences, if you like. From the moment we're able to perceive information or perceive, sights and sounds and smells, and start having perceptions, preferences, you see. And then they build up in our consciousness. Maybe they build stories around them. Maybe there's a trauma even associated with it, And then we try to look at the world and we say, oh, I see clearly. I see how things really are. No, you don't. You're seeing through your colored lens what you want to see. Yeah. It's called naive realism. We think we see reality, but it's filtered through our perceptions, our education, our upbringing, our everything, great variety of different things. And then, of course, the thinking then is even more distorted. If your thinking is based on wrong perceptions of things, your thinking gets really off. Then if you think those ways long enough, it become opinions, fixed views and opinions. Then you have wars and you have conflicts, and it's only a misperception. If you realize that, why make a big story and big thing about it, just a distorted perception. But this is, unless we see these processes going on directly, that's what we have to fall back at. That's our fallback. That's our default mechanism in the brain. We want to understand things. We need make some kind of sense out of the world. And even if the sense perception is a wrong distortion, at least we feel we know something anyway. But not knowing anything, really confusing, isn't it? It's more confusing not to know than even to have wrong knowing. Unfortunately, misperception. At least you have some. You can say, well, at least I know that much anyway. At least I know that I'm deluded. And I can work on it. But if you don't even know you're deluded, that's the trouble with ignorance and delusion. You don't even know you're deluded or ignorant. You're ignorant of your ignorance. So the Buddha is pointing out some of these very, very fundamental, distortions of how we see reality and how we build this false world around us. And the ultimate result is more suffering then. We don't even see what reality really is. How do we live in harmony with it then? We live in this world and we have, actually in reality, we have little control over it. It seems like we do have control because we only live in a way which, I want to go here, I want to go there, but now, now we hear more about these natural disasters, and people's, organized life suddenly thrown upside down. In the Wat Buddhadhammo, our monastery near Sydney, what was it, 2019, we had a bushfire come through there. And I come from Canada, I come from places where there's lots of rain. I don't know about bushfires. I know about floods a little bit, but not, not about fires. But when I was living in Thailand, I had to put out a few fires where they have a dry season in northeast Thailand, a long dry season. So sometimes the villagers light little fires in the forest. So they forget there's forest monks living in the forest. Besides just leaves, burn the leaves, And we're the same color as the leaves, So I had to put a few fires out. So I thought I was really prepared. When a bushfire came near the monastery, I'm going to stay there and put out the fire. But that was in Thailand is just leaf fires, It's not, not crown fires. So, but anyway, our nice peaceful life in the monastery was disrupted by a bushfire. My hut burned down. We were evacuated for 2 weeks or so. had to live in different places, and and I still, even though we're encouraged to reflect upon impermanence and change, when I still think about my stuff that burned down in the kuti, I still have some attachment to my favorite socks and my favorite hat, and when I distance say, oh yes, everything's impermanent, but not my stuff. There was a picture in the news about when the fire was burning through the monastery. There's a picture of one of the buildings burning. And at first somebody told us that it was this other building, a communal house, a communal building. I thought, well, that's a bit unfortunate, so we'll lose our supply of chocolate and stuff, but so what? And then I looked closely and said, no, that's my house. And then it really hurt. It's okay if the communal supplies burn, but when my stuff burns, it was a real shock. So that's how deeply we have this attachment, this ignorance is so deeply ingrained in us. That's why the Buddha gave us, fortunately, quite a variety of meditation topics to relate to kind of contemplate. Partly, each one of us has our own, you can say, kind of preferences or kind of attachment, if you like. So different meditations work for different people at different times too. Yeah. So maybe I should finish off the third level. There's the underlying disposition to conceit. There is the beginning of the arising of the thought, I am. The third one is then identification. Once I arises, you say, okay, there's I. Now, who am I? What is this I? And then there is certain basic fundamental functions of life. For example, the six senses. These are fundamental to all human beings. We have the six senses. This is one of the sources of identification. It's my eye that sees, my hearing, my body, and my thinking, my mind that perceives. That's one of the sources. The other one is what's called the 5 groups of grasping, 5 particular functions. One is body, and there's 4 mental ones. I don't know if you got to pull out the list here. Feeling, recognizing, you can say mental activities, and then there's a knowing quality or consciousness. It's just fundamental functions. All human beings have them. Even certain sentient beings have some of them. I don't know, do you think a dog has feeling? Yeah, okay.
Of course.
Perception, does it have perception, recognizing? I guess to a certain degree, elementary, recognizes food. Yeah. I don't know if a dog thinks or not, does it?
My dog does.
What kind of thinking is that? So there are different ways that these have been defined.
Maybe I'll hold it up.
I can't see them yet. I define them as this is embodying. This is the body, basically, body. And the feelings, okay. Perception, I translate as recognizing, because there is an element of memory to that. Then mental formations, I translate as willing and habits. And consciousness, I define as bare knowing. In Buddhism, this consciousness, vijnana, is just the bare knowing of the sense data, that there is seeing now, there is hearing, but it doesn't know what it is yet, what you're hearing or seeing. That comes around here in Sanya, tells you what you're seeing and hearing. Gives you some reference point, it cognizes, gives some labels to things, and then this one tells you what to do with what you see now or hear. This is the active part of it. Intention, will, karma is in this one here. Just picks up the bare data, bare sense data. But anyway, you can put it down. I don't need to remember that right now, but and the 4th level is views, self-views. In self-views, there's kind of existential self-views. Do I feel that, with my view that I'm eternal, my soul will go on countless rebirths or go up to heaven or hell or whatever. And then there's kind of personal views and opinions. Like probably each one of us has a certain view of ourself. I'm intelligent. I'm not intelligent. I'm beautiful. I'm ugly. I got a problem. I know everything. I'm arrogant or whatever. No, I wouldn't admit that, would you? You just be that way, probably. Your neighbors know you that way, but you just know yourself as being very confident. And then, so now the second part, the beyond I making, is now to find ways to reverse this process. It goes, I explained it in sort of degrees of subtlety or refinement. The most refined one is the beginning, is this underlying dispositions. Yeah. Then there is I, the arising of I, and identification, and finally self-views, which can be very, very conceptual, very, 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 very complicated and very complex ways of thinking, evolved ways of thinking. So then for the going to the beyond that, working through the coarsest to the most subtle now, starting off with just being aware of views, self-views, for example, and then going to identification. That's where most of the work has to be done, probably. So anyway, better not give you too much, otherwise your meditation might be disrupted. So we have a period of meditation now, sitting meditation. Are you okay to sit now? Or you sit long enough
to stretch?
Yep. A few minutes stretching if you want. If you need to. So we're taking up a reasonably comfortable posture. And to know whether the body is comfortable, it can be helpful to move your attention through the body, maybe from the top of the head, down through the body, down through the back, and to the bottom of your feet, and up to the front of the body. Sometimes there are places in the body where there's some attention, which is so familiar to us we don't even notice it. Tension in the shoulders or the back. It's so familiar to us, or so common we don't even know that it's tensed up. So if you bring your attention there, oh, look at that. It's a bit more tense than I thought it would ever be. And we just try to relax, reduce the discomfort as much as possible, adjusting your posture or whatever seems appropriate. If there is some particular place that resists your attempt at relaxing, you can breathe into it, settle your attention there for a little while. Take a few deep breaths, a few deep inhalations, exhalations. And then we turn our attention to the sensation of natural breathing at the nostrils or wherever else in the body where it seems most obvious. Rising, falling of the chest or the abdomen. We're just using this sensation of natural breathing as a point of focus. Breathing is very useful because it's continuous, always present. Maybe our thoughts wander, memories come and go, but the breathing is always present. So whenever you notice your attention wandering, gently, patiently bring it back to the breathing again. Just trying to follow as best we can. Inhalation followed by an exhalation. can be helpful too sometimes if you have lots of mental activity, just to, on the exhalation, just like the thoughts are just flowing out, flowing away on the breeze. Don't need to breathe them back again. Let them go, let them float away. Try to settle your awareness with the sensation of breathing within the body. And in general, if you can settle your attention on one object, such as the breathing, then the mind can possibly settle down there with the breathing. If you're thinking many thoughts, then it just stirs up the mind. And just having one object of awareness, of attention, settle your attention on, mind can become quiet and calm. You have to be aware of course, becoming dull and sleepy. If you notice your mind becoming more dull and sleepy, you can try to observe the very beginning of the inhalation. Try and follow it to the end of the inhalation. To sharpen your awareness, your attention. Beginning of the exhalation. Following it through to the end of the exhalation. And wherever your attention wanders is back to the breathing again. Pick it up wherever you can find it. Just noticing now how the breathing is. Is this breathing flowing quite easily? Or do you notice some strain there? You have to force yourself to breathe deeply, or forcing out the exhalation. Just try to allow the breathing to follow a natural rhythm. And then just noticing how your mind relates to the breathing. Is the mind able to follow the breathing quite easily? Or do you kind of struggle with it? You notice your attention wandering a lot. Is that breathing reasonably clear, or is it becoming dull? Sometimes bring attention back to the body, making sure the body's upright and straight. Can bring energy into the body, keeping the back upright, although not tensed up. And then see if you can notice your relationship to the body, to the breathing. Do you notice thoughts arising of, oh, I'm breathing, this is my body? or not so many thoughts about the body and the breathing. Can you sense the body and the breathing without reference to I? The body just is, breathing just is. What happens if you notice some discomfort arising in the body? That discomfort, give more reference to I, my body. What if there's noticeable pleasant feeling in the body, comfortable body? Your sense of I get reinforced or attenuated. Bringing your attention back to the body sitting here once again. General awareness of the body. Body sitting on a cushion or chair. Is it generally comfortable, or you notice general discomfort? Are there any places in the body where there is particular comfort or discomfort? And you notice any self-referencing there? Arising of the thought I, my body. Sometimes it goes a bit further. I like, I don't like. I like comfortable body. I dislike uncomfortable body. We're just trying to observe these processes. You don't need to try and analyze them or figure them out. Just observing the process of body, mind, without further I interaction with it or influencing. And noticing the condition of mind, calm or busy, clear or dull, general. And you notice any self-referencing with that. I don't like a cloudy mind. I don't like busy mind, etc., etc. Again, just observing. Don't need to change it. Don't try to do anything with it. Just observing. Oh, right. That's how the mind works. That's how the body works. And then you can relax the posture and open your eyes. So when the Buddha gave references to developing awareness, attentiveness, mindfulness, he mentioned 4 different postures: sitting, standing, walking, lying down. So we know about the sitting. We can also introduce some walking meditation. So it's somewhat similar to sitting. The principle is the same. We just change the object of focus. Generally when you're walking, the sensation of feet touching the ground is a stronger sensation than breathing, for example. Many people try to watch your breathing when you're walking is a bit too subtle. But when you're walking, ideally, feet touching the ground, right? Right? Don't your feet touch the ground when you walk? Have you ever noticed that? With so many ants around in Australia, you notice it quite often. You're on bare feet. But and formally speaking, we usually suggest you find a walking place, generally about 30 steps. I think that's probably enough that you can get into the flow of walking without getting lost. If it's too short, then you end up turning around all the time. So, so you go out to your supposed walking path, and you try to bring some collectedness and clarity with you. Don't leave it on your cushion. You want to use it out with your walking meditation too. Take it out with you. And then you find a place to do walking meditation. You can just designate in your mind first, that plant over there, end of the walkway or something or other. And just be aware of standing there, sensation of feet touching the ground. And observe the condition of the body, not too tense, relaxed enough. And then just let the body walk. Being aware of the feet touching the ground. There's a point of reference. On the cold concrete or hot concrete or the grass, whatever the sensation is, but that's your point of reference and your point of focus. This sensation, that sensation. Come to the end of the path, stop again, be aware of standing. You can turn around, usually to the right, stand again. Standing there for a few moments is also standing meditation. Just being aware of the condition of the body as you stand, and then set up the intention to walk, let the body walk. And similarly with sitting, if you notice your mind wandering off, Usually it's helpful to have your eyes open when you walk so you don't bump into something. If you find yourself getting distracted by too much seeing, you can always lower your gaze or defocus your eyes so you can be more aware of the bodily sensation of walking. Maybe you can bring in a little extra exercise. When you do walking, you can try to be aware of seeing occasionally. Open your eyes and look at something. And maybe you can notice when your eyes are open, there's an object you see, and you notice a little eye creeping into it. Oh, I'm seeing. Maybe it goes a bit further. Oh, I'm seeing flower. I like flower. I want flower. No, this belongs to John. I can't take flower. But then if he's really generous, so he wouldn't mind if I take a flower. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, right, walking. Or maybe hearing. Sometimes you can get maybe taken away too much by seeing maybe. Most people overuse the sight sense, you see. Maybe just hearing. And how far does that perception go now? It's just hearing sound. Or, oh no, the sound is a car. Oh, I don't like car sounds. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, back to just hearing. The sense of sound, just receiving sound. And maybe you can notice sometimes this I popping into the scene. I see, I like, I want, I think. And maybe if you can, a little trick is maybe if you're trying exercise in seeing, just try noticing to defocus the eyes rather than focus on one particular thing. Defocus your eyes and look, see if you can notice what how the sense of eye can change. So there's a definite object, red flower. If I defocus it, there's not a definite object, sometimes not a definite subject anymore. What is this? It's defined by me seeing a flower. I know what a flower is, and so I don't know my relationship with flowers, but if it's just vague red and greens, who are you? No reference anymore. Anyway, little tricks to try. But anyway, if you say do some walking meditation, or half an hour, till 11 o'clock, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. And you can wait for the bell, or even though you smell the food, but wait for the bell. I get there first.
So I'll ring a large bell to come back for having the meal, and so the food will be outside there. Just take a plate and serve yourself. Then we'll have an hour's break until 12. There's tea, coffee out there as well. So having a mindful sort of meditative meal. If you want to talk with others, that's fine, but talk mindfully and in things that pertain to meditation and so forth, as opposed to worldly things that might distract and disturb the mind. If you don't want to be spoken to, just if you've got a name tag, just turn your name tag upside down so people know that not to talk to that person. That person wants to sort of just keep silent and more of a quiet day, especially if they can't read the name. So again, I'll ring the bell at when it's time to sort of come back in from the walking.
At 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it's the eating meditation. There's a lot of insight in eating, what I like and what I don't like, and a lot of proliferation you developed around that. But anyway, walking first. And once again, just trying to bring attention to the sensations that make up direct experience of body. Many of us have a sort of our own concept of body, our own image of our body. But if we return to the sensations, that's a direct experience. And even we take up, a so-called the same posture, but bring attention to sensations in the body, you might notice there's difference, especially after that sumptuous meal. The heavy body, but heavier body than when you left here, when you got up before the eating. Just trying to tune into sensation as it is in the present moment, leaving aside our concepts about the body, our expectations, our preferences, just trying to receive the body as it is, whether it is so-called comfortable or uncomfortable, or in general, if the body is uncomfortable, then generally speaking, there'll be a stronger sense of self. Suffering is a bit of a threat to a kind of secure sense of self. The body is more comfortable, you can kind of relax into it, and kind of the sense of self can be somewhat attenuated then. But first of all, just to be able to notice what those sensations are, and then if you notice, oh, there is some discomfort, rather than trying to just wish it away, see if you can go into it. Recognize that what's the cause of this? And did I overeat? And did I pull a muscle when I'm doing walking meditation or something? So then you know the cause and effect relationships that we have to learn to live in harmony with, rather than resist it and get angry with it or frustrated or whatever. Just have to recognize, oh, okay, and this is how it works. Cause and effect. Do this, this is the result. You change the cause, you change the result. As much as we are able to. And if you did try some of those exercises, trying to observe the arising of the thought idea, I am, try to refer to that again and just try to integrate that into your understanding. The Buddha said this thought concept, I, is just a concept. It's conceiving. There's no basis of it in reality. It's just an idea in your mind. Certainly can help to you orientate to things, but be careful you don't believe it too absolutely. Don't get fooled by it. from a place of some degree of calm. Just see if you can observe what is if there's any kind of sense of a self. How would you define yourself? You see any kind of self-view there? Yeah. Oh, I'm meditating very well right now. I'm a good meditator, or I'm doing the right thing. Mind is calming down, or the opposite, frustration or something. I can't do this. It's too difficult. Is there some kind of dominating a sense of a self? Maybe there's some little voice in the background keeps talking to you. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm hopeless, if there's hope for me, I'm hopeless. A general view of life. Or if nothing's very obvious, never mind. You don't need to have a view of yourself. Most people do have some kind of impression. I'm old, I'm young, I'm beautiful, I'm not so beautiful. Just trying to be aware of it, because a lot of these self-views are sort of in the background or even unconscious. But they're still affecting the way we deal with life. Bring your attention back to the body sitting here once again. Just trying to be aware of a general condition of body, heavy or light. Relaxed or tense. There's a general condition, and then maybe there's specific parts of the body. You can be generally relaxed, but maybe there is tension in the neck or the shoulders. The body's generally comfortable, but there's a little bit of ache in your knees or something. The more we become aware of sensation rather than body, the more we're tuning into the direct experience of what we call body, rather than have to refer back to concept. This concept idea of body, or my image of body, which is closely related to our sense of self. Identifying with this, we have this body for a whole lifetime so far. And for most of it, we've been relating to this body in the wrong way. Assuming it's mine, assuming I have control over it. If you observe the sensations, you could observe them, sensations coming and going, whether I choose them or not, whether I invite them or not. You tune into the flow of embodying, experience of embodying as it's happening. Observing the condition of the mind right now, the degree of calm, the lack of calm, degree of clarity of the mind, or lack of clarity. Sometimes you may recognize the cause of it. You find the cause by looking at the experience itself. It's a direct link to a cause. Sometimes it can be a bit more complicated than just one cause. And there's causal processes that work there. I would like it to be this way. I would like my mind to be calm. Yeah, good luck. You can wish all you want, but unless you tune into the right cause, it's not going to happen. Bring attention back to the body sitting here once again, and tuning into condition right now, recognizing when the body is calm or relaxed or tense, agitated, whatever, and just trying to acknowledge it, just trying to observe it as it is, rather than try to change it for the better. relax the posture and open the eyes. So I mostly talked about the process of self-making in the morning. So now we should move into the process of how to go beyond self-making or I-making. And as I mentioned, the most kind of evolved or I guess evolved stage is self-views, views about yourself. Yeah, this is already coming on from, we already have some idea what our self is, identification. Then we have views to reinforce those ideas. And there's a whole range of different self-views. And the Buddha mainly was just pointing out the very kind of dynamics of view itself. The Buddha, in one of the scriptures, the Buddha gives a story from India. There was a king who tried an experiment. He invited a group of people who were blind from birth to come to the palace. And he introduced them to an elephant. And one person, because they couldn't see it, so they only could use their sense of touch. So one person touched the elephant's ear, one person touched the elephant's leg, another the trunk, another the tail, another the belly. And then he asked them, what is an elephant? So an elephant is, the ear was a winnowing basket, a big basket. And of course the leg was like a trunk of a tree. And the trunk was, I don't know, a water hose. Did they have hoses? The tail was a broom, you know. And then they started arguing with each other. No, it's a broom. No, it's a trunk of a tree. No, it's a... And eventually they started fighting each other because they had these views. See, they wanted to defend their view. You see, and then the moral of the story is that they all had experienced part of the picture. They only experienced part of this elephant. You see, yet they drew conclusions about it. Then they have to defend their view. Then they get into conflict about it, and they miss the point. So, this is the nature of views. We all see part of the picture. You say only the enlightened being sees the whole picture. We only see part of it. We have one little view, and if you identify with that and you try to build your worldview around it, you got a misinterpretation of it. You only see part of the picture. I was just thinking about like this place here. If you go over there and look out that way, you say, oh, this place is very near the ocean. You go on that side and you say, oh, no. This place is very near the mountains. If you don't talk to each other, can you have a war over it? Humans do have wars over things like that. They stupid things like that. Come and see my view. Come and see my view. Oh, now I understand. It's only a view. Well, I prefer to put it in verb form. It's only viewing. At this moment I see this view. I'm just viewing this way. In a few minutes it changes. People change their seats around and different viewing. It's constantly changing all the time. So rather than hang on to one view and this is the right view, the Buddha recognized we all have views, but the danger comes when we fix ourselves. This view is right, all the other views are wrong. This even applies to Buddhism. The Buddha said, don't believe me. Study it, investigate, find out for yourself. His teaching is just a raft to take you it can be helpful to take you to the further shore, you see. But when you get to the further shore, then leave the raft behind. Don't bail out too soon, though. Even if you have an experience, like an enlightenment experience, don't hang on to it. Just a view. But of course, there are people who have I would accept they can have some kind of bona fide awakening, a type of awakening experience, and they say, oh, I'm enlightened. I'm enlightened. Then it fades away, which is inevitable. Everything rises and passes away. Well, yesterday I was enlightened, today I'm not. What happened? Better be enlightened. So and then you start to try and reinforce that enlightenment part of you and build a following and a cult and a religion, and and you lost the plot. End up trying to defend your religion, and you already lost connection with beyond the self. You build a self around your religion or something. Tricky business. But fortunately, we have this very valuable tool of awareness, mindfulness, attentiveness. And if we practice this, it's attentiveness to the present moment, what's really going on here. Like I say, if you can tune into sensation is the direct experience of body. Then you don't have to refer to a concept of it, fixed body. And this is really helpful, especially as you get older, because my image of how the body was is changing all the time, and I have to keep readjusting it. I can't do these things anymore. It's not the nature of the body. Where if I go by my concept, I should be able to. Yesterday I did that. Can't do it today, but yesterday I did. So what's wrong? Then something's wrong with my body. And try and find some magical medicine or something or other to make me younger or something or other. But it's a losing cause. You're wasting your money. But you tune into it, and just recognize, okay, that's how, this is the aging process. The body arises, is born, and then it passes away. And when you can tune into it, you're more relaxed with it, and there's less suffering, less friction. Yeah. You're trying to resist it, trying to resist old age, you go crazy, you get dementia, I think. It's trying to keep the tide away, Better to get your feet wet and try and stop the tide. But first of all, it's helpful. We need to try and be aware of these views. Like, for example, our view about ourselves the views are reinforcing this idea. The more you think about, I'm like this or I'm like that, it becomes a habit. And then it becomes unconscious habit. And then you don't realize how you're resisting reality. Reality is changing and your views are still fixed like they were before. Just recognizing views are constantly changing all the time. And I like to reflect. I mean, I've been to many places, so I see different views all the time, And some of them I prefer them maybe than other views, but they're just views, and it's constantly changing. So sometimes the views are not very pleasant, but you just wait a little bit and it changes. So, when I was living in Europe, I was we didn't have a car at the monastery. I just used the trains, Swiss trains, very efficient. So I spent many hours watching the view go by. So it's just like a passing show. Your life is just constantly viewing this and viewing that, and hopefully you'll just keep adjusting to this viewing and not fixed in one. Fix it. That I'm right, everybody else is wrong, but everybody's partly right. Of course, I'm more right than most, but. So maybe we should, maybe I should elaborate a little bit about this experience of observing sensation in the body, because in the five groups of grasping here, one of them is embodying, or what was it say, material form. Yeah. But the Buddha was explaining things mostly subjectively. The material form, it was mostly refers to the physical body, you could say. And if we tune into the sensations of the body, then we can tune into the body as an ongoing experience. See, material form to me already sounds too fixed. It's already a concrete slab. form. It's already formed. But the body is capable of amazing changes. Some people have heard about, some people have, like some of the Ajahns, the teachers in Thailand, they cured themselves of illnesses, not by medicine, but by meditation. When the mind can go into deep states of calm, then you can kind of disidentify with the body, with the sickness, and then there's a transformation. The body can, in a way, heal itself. The body has amazing powers of regeneration. I notice myself that I'm very reluctant to take any medicines. And if there is, I get some kind of discomfort or illness or something or other. I mean, nothing serious, but if I just wait, if I have enough patience and don't react to it, don't get angry with it, and even kind of open up to it a bit more as a learning experience. Oh, this is another aspect of body, you see, even though it's uncomfortable. But most of the time, the body heals itself. 3 days, most of the time it works, it heals itself. If it was 5 days, then I think it would be, I need a little bit of, maybe I need some aspirin or something, or vitamin C or something natural first, or reduced by food intake, or, make a few adjustments and see what happens. Then maybe it goes away. Then maybe that persists a bit longer, try something else. Only as a very, very last resort do I go to the doctor, which I haven't been to a couple of times in my 75 years. I've been to a doctor. Even had once, I had dengue fever in Thailand, and dengue fever is there's no cure for it. But most people, at least it mainly seriously affects children and old people. So since I'm not old, it wasn't going to affect me too much. I thought. The worst headache I ever had in my life for 4 days, but I've been used to having. I was in Thailand for many years, and I'm used to having fevers and various things. So, and most of the time, we're way out in the forest monasteries. We're far from a hospital. In that place, the hospital was 2 hours drive away. So you don't go there when you just got a little headache. It's a major expedition. You got to call a neighbor in with a car to take us there, and a lot of complications for being a monk. The nurses can't touch us, and oh my gosh, it's not worth the trouble. So I just stayed in the monastery and rested. I was knocked on my back for 4 days, and then it just disappeared, went away, and I could become more normal. But the very interesting thing was, when I was functioning again, my mind was so peaceful. I think maybe dengue fever kind of blows a few fuses in your brain or something. A terrible headache, and then when I was functioning again, mine was so peaceful. Only thing was, it was a little bit dull. It was like a little bit hazy, very peacefully quiet, but not very clear, not very much awareness, So I thought, it's not a good idea to get dengue fever again. Okay, it's peaceful, but I think meditation is a safer method to calm your mind down and get dengue fever again. But a couple of the junior monks, they were flat on their back for 10 days, But so I think my method works. I was only out for 4 days, you see. But just try to see for yourself. Try it out, Just try and be more patient. I mean, I read somewhere, it's one of these Buddhist magazines somewhere. Somebody had, went to a retreat, and the teacher had said, try and observe the pain in the body, for example, and see what happens. Most people, when they have pain, they resist it. Body tenses up, and they get resistant, or even they get some negative states of mind about it. And then the whole healing process is compromised. But if you can relax, just physically relax with the pain, then the circulation continues normally. And then the healing process can actually operate more effectively. But if you react to it, tense up, then the blood circulation is slowed down, your heart is not in a very good state, and high blood pressure or whatever, you react to it, and it compromises your immune system. But if you can really relax with it, and it's not need a bit of a calmness of mind, and try to use it as an object to observe, study, investigate, go into it rather than react to it. Takes a bit of practice, because we all have wrong relationship with pain. But this person said, this person heard on a retreat, you just try to observe carefully that pain, whatever it is, pain in the knee or something or other. So this person went home, and they were hammering or something, and they hit their thumb. And they said they would have normally kind of screamed and run around and well, not they're Buddhists, they wouldn't swear. But they said they tried to meditate upon it and just be mindful of this throbbing thumb, And the bruise went away in 2 days. There's no no permanent damage to it. And he said it kind of healed itself within a few days. Well, normally if that happened to them, they'd have to go to the hospital or something, or they'd have to have a bandage on it and have to take some painkillers and all this. But just with mindfulness, and because they just had a retreat, I guess they still had a little reserve of mindfulness and collectedness, then they could actually do that. Just try to sit there quietly, rather than watching your breathing, watching the thump, blood circulating in your blistering thumb, bruised thumb. Not your usual meditation object, but it's a good lesson maybe to practice with. And positive part of it is, if you have a painful part of the body, it can, if you're able to, it's a very sharp point to observe. You see, much more sharper than breathing. Bit unpleasant, but it's very obvious. Usually you won't be distracted unless you want to be. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it. But if we can tune into sensation, then we have a different relationship to the body, and some amazing things can happen. The body can heal itself. Where normally, if we go from an idea of a concept of body, we try to impose that on the body. Shouldn't be painful. The body shouldn't get old. And do we win? Are we successful? No, you're fooling yourself. You're more and more deluded. Some shouldn't be painful, but it is. And if you wish it wasn't that way, you're fooling yourself. Increasing your delusion rather than recognizing, acknowledging that's how it is. Now look at it. And when you study pain, one of the first lessons you learn is it's not a thing. It is a process. It's constantly it's coming and it's going. It's stronger and it's weaker, and it's not one fixed thing. It's just an impermanent process. If you can sit with that, then why hang on to it? Hang on to this pain and try and fight with it and try to defend yourself against it, and and you just open to it. That's the way the nature of the body. Okay, maybe not to try with bashing your thumb first. That's a bit extreme. But I mean, if you have some, like when you're sitting, sometimes you notice slight pain in the knee or something. Rather than just try to change posture and you get rid of it, just try to observe it for a while. Study this pain. It's a universal condition of the body, having a human body. If you can study it, investigate it, you get a new experience of this, a new relationship with it. Maybe sometimes it can be helpful to do other exercises, like trying to practice friendliness. You heard that? Metta bhavana. Be friendly to the pain. Try and be open to it, receptive, friendly. I mean, maybe not go too friendly with it, and, welcome it too much. But at least non-contention, not fight with it. And then if you don't fight with it, then you have much more energy available to actually deal with it. Most of us are too busy fighting with it, and that takes a lot of energy to fight with the pain, which is, always come across at some time or other in our life. And do we ever win? Huh? Pain wins out usually. So you have to move your body, change, take a painkiller or something or other. But if you learn to be more at peace with it, be more friendly to it, you have to be careful though, because when there is pain, it shows the body is under stress. And the body can only stand so much stress before there is damage. So for example, your knees, you got to be careful not to overdo it, not to think that you're, invincible, you're Wonder Woman or something, or Superman. You still have Superman around? So you have to know the limit, but just try to investigate to recognize enough is enough. Then you can change. But it can give you a new relationship to the body, coming from the direct experience of sensation rather than concepts of body. So with that, maybe we should have a change of posture, back to walking meditation. And any questions about walking meditation? Is it all right? Wasn't too complicated to walk? Be aware of your feet touching the ground. It's okay? And maybe you can also, in this exercise, when you stop at the end of the path, stand there, just be aware, see if you can notice, for example, any kind of self-view you have. Your body is, my body is aching, or I'm doing this very well, I'm doing this very proficiently, I'm good, I'm progressing with this or something or other. And just observe it. Like I say, many of these views are in the background and we don't notice it. And particularly when you stop, bring attention to the body, be aware that the body is relaxed. Sometimes we get caught up with doing. I'm doing walking meditation. After a while, you're hunched over like this. I'm getting this walking meditation in. Get it under my belt. Take off that box. But you would notice it building up in the body then. So if you bring awareness of, right, okay, relax again. Just being, standing, walking, being aware of the feet touching the ground, not going anywhere, not doing anything special, just walking. Simple, but complicated. Human brains make it complicated. So we've gone a bit overtime here, so maybe, 1:15?
Or a bit longer if you like, it's up to you.
1:30?
1:30?
1:30? Yeah. Help you digest the meal today? Okay, 1:30?
I'll ring the bell at 1:30 to come back in again.
So once again, taking up a reasonably comfortable posture. And ideally, you change postures from walking to sitting. Still, the principle is the same. We just change the meditation object from sensation of feet touching the ground to sensation of the breathing. Being aware of the body, relaxing the body. Some people find the walking relaxing, some find it more energizing, some find it more exhausting. Just notice how the body feels now when you change the posture. Any effect which the walking has done, any change in your sensation of body. doing the walking meditation, we usually have to use more of the senses, seeing, maybe we hear more, maybe there are smells, hopefully not too many tastes, you aren't sampling the donuts out there. And there's more physical sensation when you're moving, as well as the walking, the maybe aware of the sensation of cool wind on your bare skin. The benefit of walking is that the sensation of your feet touching the ground is stronger normally than the sensation of breathing, but there are more senses are impacted. If we're sitting and the body is comfortable, we mostly just have to deal with the mental sense. Images coming up, memories, thoughts arising and passing. Maybe some faint smells. There's some sounds. Eyes closed, there's no strong visual impact, contact. Maybe just kind of reflect back to the walking. Is there any noticeable kind of referencing to any of the senses in particular? You find that you enjoy the seeing more, hearing, smelling, the movement of the body. There's some mental sense there too, but maybe it's a bit more subtle. Do you notice any preference for any of those senses? You notice if you get a certain sense of identity from them. I reference myself to what I see, or what I hear, or what I smell, what the body senses. Or maybe hard to notice any of them, or maybe they all seem to kind of work together. One way to sort of check is that how would you respond if you weren't able to see anymore? You became deaf, you couldn't hear anymore, couldn't smell anymore, couldn't taste anymore. Your body became numb or paralyzed or something. How would your sense of identity be affected? And try a little exercise just to try to observe your relationship with these various functions, body, and there's mental functions. You have some familiarity with identification with body, embodying. We have these views about the body and preferences for the body and images of how our body should be, and then another one of the mental functions is feeling. Very, very, in Buddhism, it's very, 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 very fundamental feeling, just either pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. It's not feeling as an emotion, it's just feeling as a feeling tone, the general tone of your body is comfortable, or the general feeling tone is pleasant. You notice predominance of discomfort in the body, the general tone is probably unpleasant feeling. But more frequently, it's just neutral, not pleasant or unpleasant. And sometimes you may notice I really have a real strong preference for pleasant feeling, or a really, really strong resistance to unpleasant feeling. Another one is what's called sanya in Pali, or closest, it's recognizing, but closely related to memory. Do you identify yourself with your memories? My history, places I've gone, people I've known, I've been here and there, and or what about mental activities, mental processes, thinking, planning, organizing? Identify with that strongly. I'm a great thinker. I love to think. I get a lot of pleasure from thinking, or planning, or organizing things, arranging things, being the manager. And a more subtle one is consciousness or knowing. Imagine if you didn't know, and you, like, for example, when you're falling asleep, and you have a great aversion to it, being confused, not being clear-minded. I want to know. I want to have a clear knowledge, clear seeing somehow. These are basic mental functions. Every human being has them. They're just running all the time, but it's so familiar to us, or so common for us, that we don't realize how much we depend upon them to be alive. If I have unpleasant feeling, I feel I'm losing at life. I'm dying. I'm failing. Start losing my memories. Who am I then? Can't think straight anymore. Lose your sense of self, of identity. Your consciousness is cloudy and dull and uncertain, and you get frightened and confused, and this present moment. Bring attention back to the body sitting here. Noticing the general sensations that make up our experience of body. With those sensations, you notice a certain particular feeling? It's pleasant, unpleasant, mostly neutral. Maybe if you move attention through different parts of the body, you may notice particular places. It could be a general well-being and a sense of pleasant feeling tone, but maybe your knees not so comfortable, unpleasant feeling in the knee, or the backside from sitting so long, or your back or something, or even though within that general pleasant feeling in general. If there are thoughts arising, moods in the mind, are they pleasant, unpleasant memories arising, neutral? Bringing awareness to the whole theme of feelings. We begin to study them, get very familiar with them. We have feelings with us all the time. So it's like getting to know your best friend. See, when there is memories arising, try to investigate them. Nature of memories, nature of thinking. You always think thoughts you want to think, or you like to think, or often thoughts are thinking you. And different qualities of knowing. It can be a bit uncertain, fuzzy, unclear, and then sometimes there is general clearer knowing. Sometimes there is, we can say, insight, kind of an extra special knowing, getting a little glimpse of the bigger picture. And then bring attention back to the body sitting here once again, tuning in how the body is now, experience the body as it is right now. Do you like it or dislike it, or can you just be receptive to it, how it is? And you can relax the posture and open your eyes. So we have a tea drinking meditation now. So don't want to get too technical, but the Buddha's view of sources of identification, two main sources of identification. One is the six senses. We identify with seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, or well, more like ordinary thinking. We have processing mental information is our sixth sense, the mind sense. And basically, we have a preference, each one of us has a preference for what we, I'm a seer or something rather. I depend upon seeing as the main source of my way of relationship with the world, or hearing or something. We get a sense of myself in the world, the subject within the object. But imagine if you began to lose these senses, which we do in old age anyway. Most people, sometimes people lose it even before by accident or something. Imagine if you lost your sight, and what would your sense of self be like? But if you study these senses, you actually recognize just how fragile they are. Not only physically fragile, but also the way that we interpret them. The sights you see, your eye is picking up certain sense data, but maybe you've got some kind of eye impairment, and you don't see it properly. And there's people who are colorblind. In fact, there was one of the monks. He was a bit of an artist, and he do all these paintings, and they found out that he was actually colorblind. Made some very artistic, very abstract paintings, because he thought he was seeing. And apparently, what is it? Is it Matisse or somebody, or one of the famous impressionists? He was partly colorblind. He had the kind of a vision impairment. The impressionists, they see kind of, what impressionism is, right? A bit blurry. He thought he was seeing reality. The reality was, but it was just he's visually impaired. But beautiful paintings come out of it. But just when you begin to observe these senses, for example, begin to recognize how fragile they are, and you identify with them less. You don't really you don't invest in them as being the way of relating to the world. Otherwise, they're gonna fade away. They are impermanent, And if we invest a lot of our identity in seeing things, being the person who sees clearly, and then it fades. Your sight fades away. You're lost. And the other source of identification is what the Buddha calls these 5 groups of grasping, and these are a little bit technical because probably not many of us have really investigated very deeply what is the source of our identity. Like feeling, for example. And the way the Buddha defines feeling is very, very primal. It's just a very primal feeling of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It's not emotion. Emotion is a complex state of mind, mental state. Whether you're happy or sad, that's already an emotion. That'll be a state of mind here, the mental formations here. But very, very primal is this pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. You can see it, you can perhaps sense it more like, being comfortable with something. You see a sight, and it's sort of, yeah, I kind of like it. Pleasant. Sometimes you see a sight and, oh my goodness, it's kind of unpleasant. Most of the time it's pretty neutral though. And this is just, it's actually quite automatic in our sense perception. As soon as you pick up some kind of sense contact, there's automatically a feeling there too. And this is probably, it goes back to our reptilian brain. You know about the reptilian brain? Anyway, it's a very primal brain, which, when something is unpleasant, it's threatening. So you got to act very quickly, otherwise you get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or something. So there's a sense of danger already. You're aware of a sense of danger or attraction. Is it food, or are you the food? And if you stop and think about it, you think, gee, am I a fool? Jump, too late. It just happens like that, you know, pleasant, unpleasant, quick, you're off, or flight or fright, fight or flight or chow. And then what about the the sanya here, recognizing or perception? I mean, they more familiar with memory. This perception relies upon memory to give you some kind of familiarity, be able to name something, give you some reference point to recognize it, what it is, cognition. There's a sense data, color and shape. What is it now? You know, memory would say, oh, that looks like it's a pole or a water pipe or something or other, you know. But most of it, some of it identify, at least we all identify to some degree with memory, right? Somebody asks you, who are you? Say, well, I can't remember. but you say, oh, I am, you know, I am a Buddhist monk, I guess, you know. I don't see myself because I don't very rarely look in a mirror, so I don't know. Say, who are you? And my first thing wouldn't be Buddhist monk. You know, I would just say, who are you? Well, I'm a Canadian, maybe. Is it so dangerous to say that in Australia? No, we're friendly, aren't we? Okay. And if I was to say Buddhist monk, I don't know what the reaction would be, you know. If they have a favorable impression or not, you know, so. Somebody in the airport asked me who I was, you know, and I assumed, well, she sort of said something like, and you know, what are you? What's your affiliation or something? Or I said Buddhist. Oh yeah, oh I know. It's, you know, she was friendly to me. But sometimes the people think that in New Zealand, I was walking around the monastery and this young man was there with his girlfriend. And immediately he saw me and he says, Kung Fu, Kung Fu. I've heard that before, so I said, no, this is not the right place. We don't teach Kung Fu here, I'm sorry. Do I look like Kung Fu Panda? You know? But maybe you can test yourself if somebody was to ask you, you know, who are you? What would pop into your mind, you know? Maybe it's your career, maybe it's your, I don't know, your education or something, your nationality, or, you know, what do you identify with being yourself, you know? And then if, you know, then sometimes then that becomes, you hold on to that identity, you know, like I'm so-called a Canadian, I have a Canadian passport, but I've lived most of my life outside Canada. Don't tell the Canadian government that. So I'm a Canadian, Thai, English, Swiss, New Zealand, Australian. Speak a bit of French and German and Thai, and I speak Thai fluently. So what am I? Canadian? The average Canadian doesn't speak Thai, I'm afraid. So I don't know. Sometimes I don't know who. Nationality-wise, I don't know who I am. You know, it's a mongrel, something or other. But if you begin to you study these different aspects of the self, the Buddha said these are the primal functions of a being. Primal functions. I mean, 5. That's not too bad. Different psychologists have different interpretations. But I think Carl Jung had 4, didn't he? Intuition, intellect, feeling, something else. Anyway, he's a psychologist. He's not a Jungian, though.
Not Jungian.
But Carl Jung, he had some close to the Buddhist ones, like feeling. He had feeling was part of it. I think it was thinking too was one of them. But then he had intuition, which I don't know what exactly that fits in there. Maybe perception. I don't know. Anyway. But the Buddhist one, anyway, back to Buddhism again. But these are the primal kind of functions of the mind and body. There's the body there, and there's 4 mental functions, the primary ones. So we are identifying with these. And it's helpful if you want to study these or use the Buddhist template to study these particular, the Buddhist template of this, and you begin to recognize them, what they are in your mind. They're not quite the same as we would maybe think. Huh? What you think yourself is. Memory, feelings, okay. You see, feeling would be emotion. You know? Then there is, but we identify with thinking. You're the person who can think clearly, organize your life, whatever, you know. But all of these anyway, all of these, they are very impermanent, very fragile. So you're building your sense of identity upon sand. You know, you look at feelings. You know, how many times can you control a feeling? You say, well, you know, you know a few things about how to control feelings to a certain degree. You can, okay, you can sit in a comfortable environment. If you're too hot, you put on the air conditioning and you feel more comfortable. But you know, how much can you really maintain pleasant feeling in your life? After a while, you get hungry. Maybe after today, you notice you're getting tired, you know, and hungry, tired. It's a bit too early yet. Got a few more minutes yet. Don't hold on there. Hang in there. Got a tea break anyway, but. And then if you look around at your life, many people spend their whole life chasing after pleasant feeling, running away from unpleasant feeling. Now, that's basically a human condition, isn't it? You know. But when you can stop and study the feelings, you see how kind of, I say, how confusing, how difficult, how frustrating it is to play this game of feeling. Yeah. Whereas if you can just recognize what they are, you can become. Pleasant feeling comes along, rather than grab it and hold on to it and try and preserve it. You reckon, okay, pleasant feeling, it rises, it passes away. Unpleasant feeling, a little bit more challenging, but you can be able to be open to, receptive to unpleasant feeling. You know, and you find that it arises and it passes. Some of us with unpleasant feeling arises, we try to resist it. What you do is you hold on to it first, you confirm it, you grab hold of it, and then try and get rid of it. The flypaper syndrome, I call it. You know, you hold on to it, try and get rid of it now. And when you grab hold of it, you're stuck with it. Where with calmness of mind and clarity, you can just observe. Unpleasant feeling arises. It feels like this. This is what unpleasant feeling is, and it'll change eventually. Yeah. And the same with like memories. You know, I think most people usually think of memory as recalling memories, right? You just recall a memory, just like you recall your files on your computer. But now researchers in memory find out, no, it's not right. You recollect memories. That there's a few very strong impressions you have, emotionally, somatic, maybe intellectually, very, very powerful. Then you build a story around it. You know, so now after 75 years of recollecting memories, the early ones getting very, very fragile, very, very strange. What was that? My best friend's name was again in high school? George, Willie, John, I don't know. It doesn't matter anyway. You know, so you keep recollecting these memories. You know, it bases around the core of a very strong impression. Could be somatic, it could be emotional, you know, and then you fill out the story with it. And then the next one, when you recall it, recollect it, then the story shifts a little bit. And was it really that way? Was it? You know? So memories are very, very unreliable. So the Buddha is saying that, you know, most people have a wrong relationship with these particular functions, mental functions, for example. And if you don't really understand them as they really are, then again, you're out of harmony with reality and you're going to suffer. Yeah, so it's a matter of trying to study them, you know, and what happens is when you can see them as processes, what's to identify with? Identification is actually a process of holding, right? This is me, holding on to the object, but everything's shifting. So, you know, then what you're holding on to is just becomes sand. It decays in your hands, and so you can't really hold on to it when you see it constantly changing, constantly changing. When you hold on to it with your mind as a theme, a concept, an idea in your mind, then it's wrong view. It's ignorance, and then we're going to be in conflict. It's fading away, and then you're what? I'm that person who did this and did that, and suddenly my imagery of myself, my CV begins to kind of crumble. Better write it down before before I forget. That's why the identification is a source of suffering then, because there's nothing really to identify with, ultimately hold on to and say this is how it really is, outside of the changing processes. So the Buddha gave many meditations to be helpful to understand this, and there's the two main ones are contemplating the three characteristics over there: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, no permanent self. Like I say, the principle of these, the fundamental principle is impermanence. They arise and they pass, they're in process, coming and going, but how many people look at impermanence? See, the subject wants to have something stable to hold on to, see? It kind of needs something stable to give itself some subjective solidity. So it's looking for permanence. And so rather than look at, flowers decaying, you look at the solid floor. So it stands, it's more secure than the changing flower there. So, but even this floor is, I hate to remind John, but his floor is also decaying, But it'll decay very slowly compared to that flower there. In fact, maybe your body decays first before the floor does, but but it's still fading away. See? So like observing the sensation of natural breathing, you can use the breathing as an object to calm the mind, center the mind, to fix the mind, to focus the mind, or you can use it as an object to observe rising and passing, right? Yeah. There is no breath, it's only a breathing process in actuality. The air comes in and the air goes out. The air rises into the body, it passes away out of the body. And if you don't keep breathing, the air gets very stale. Eventually life ceases because you can't live on carbon dioxide forever. You have to breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. It's a constant process of change. So you can use that as a theme to observe change, arising and passing, and it can wake up in your consciousness this reality. The Buddha said that these three characteristics are the ultimate truth of reality. Everything is arising and passing away, rising and passing away. Everything is imperfect. Sometimes the second one is translated as unsatisfactoriness or even dukkha, suffering. Dukkha, in a wider sense, it just means imperfection, incomplete. And if you don't receive that or recognize that, then you're going to suffer. You don't recognize that this human life is incomplete unless you factor in death. Yeah, you just factor in this is life, and only look at one part of it is incomplete, and it'll come to an end, and then you're going to suffer and be surprised. But if you factor in, okay, it arises, and whatever comes to life is going to pass away again. It's just human. It's just common sense, right? Every day is going to turn into night, right? Yeah, recognize that. How many of us are frightened of night coming? I don't want days. Let's forget. Stop the world. I just want days. I don't want nights anymore. I just want to stay alive. I just want life. I don't want death. Just stop it. Can you? I only want youth. I don't want old age. Can you? And then the final one, no permanent self. I mean, this is requires some contemplation and reflection. the Buddha gave, I forget, I should look at it again, but I think he gave about 6 different ways to look at this no permanent self. The first one he talked about was our lack of control. If you look at these, the body, memories, if you study it objectively a bit more, not as you prefer it, but as try to observe it as it really is, you notice that we have little control over it. Yeah, like this body, okay, I can lift my arm like this. At least today I can anyway. Maybe in 5 years I won't be able to lift my arm anymore. But I can't stop it from getting more wrinkled. I just look at what I think I can control, and then I feel in control then. Then you look at, at the parts you can't control, aging, getting tired, getting hungry. You observe those, and I don't have any control over it. And much willpower as I have, as intelligent as I am, as enlightened as I am, I can't control it. I'll still get tired tonight, no matter whatever high IQ test I ever passed, whatever degree I ever made, or whatever enlightenment I had. Even the Buddha had to fall asleep at night. Even the Buddha had to eat. I don't have any control over it ultimately. If I just stay within my my comfortable framework, my comfort zone, if I start to get a little bit hungry, I run to the fridge, and then I can control that. I can control the fridge, till it gets empty, and then what do? I've got to get a job to get the money to get the food. Oops, I'm really stuck here. What's it? So the first one was lack of control over these 5 groups of grasping: body and memories and feelings. Another one was how they were all conditioned. The body is conditioned by various factors. Your memory is conditioned by where you are. I don't have any memories of being in Antarctic or anything. Never been there, so I have no memories of being in Antarctica. But I do have some of being in Thailand, and it's all conditioned. What your memories are about, what you remember, and what effort you make into remember certain things. So these various functions here depend upon conditions, other conditions. So they aren't anything in themselves. They're dependent upon something else. It's like the tree depends upon the sunlight and the water, and when you just see a tree there, but to be really clear about it, you got to take into account it's due to sunlight being there. If there's no more sunlight, the tree's not going to grow. It needs to be water underneath. You can't see the roots, but it takes water too. All I see is the tree there, but there's more to it. So there's no permanent self itself. That tree's not permanent, unique in itself. It's dependent upon many other factors too. So there's a number of different ways to contemplate, and in my book I mentioned the different meditations the Buddha gives. Besides the direct meditations on impermanence and unsatisfactoriness and no permanent self. There's other supportive meditations you can develop, like meditation on friendliness. Friendliness meditation, usually it's explained as spreading loving kindness around. But I realize personally, I find it being very hard too idealistic to be loving of everything. But I'm a friendly guy. I can be friendly. I don't love my pain, but I can be friendly to it sometimes. So I realize I can do that, but to be loving of it, not yet. Sorry. I'm very friendly to my lack of love for my pain. Because some of the experiences we have are not very pleasant. And very basically, we've been hiding away from unpleasant experiences all this time. And yet they're still there. And they come back to haunt us sometimes. They come to haunt us at night in our dreams. They come to haunt us later in life when you're not so compos mentis anymore, and but unless you become more aware of them, can recognize what they are, then they cease to haunt us anymore. So a helpful support for that is to be able to be more friendly to them. Not so pleasant, but if you're friendly and open to them, you find you have a different relationship. Just for example, you try and be friendly. Here's a real challenge, actually, maybe for most people. Friendly to your anger. Be friendly to your anger. And not crazy. You don't need to love your anger, but if you be more friendly to it, your anger is part of you. And you try and reject your anger, it's more anger, isn't it? You just compound the anger at the anger at the anger, but you can shift it around and become more friendly to it, open to it. Your anger can tell you some amazing things about yourself. There's a lot of energy locked in there too, in people's anger and rage and frustration, etc. A lot of energy is locked into it. So if you can tune into it and become more friendly to it, you can learn some amazing things about it. Why is there that? I guess I haven't got time to talk about my experience on the ski track with this anyway. Some of my old talks anyway. But a short version was that I had a real strong experience of aversion one time when I was in Switzerland. Fortunately, it was the middle of a winter retreat. So I was out on the ski track and then met this guy and he started screaming at me. And of course, he was completely wrong. No, actually I had to acknowledge he was partly right, okay, partly right. I'm not so deluded that I blame him 100%. I was partly to blame too, but anyway, he was screaming at me, and then I went back to my room in the monastery, and I sat there and I just watched the breathing, but the anger was still burning inside me. But wow, this is serious, But usually, after a few days, usually it kind of quiets down. But after 3 days of mindfulness of breathing, it was still there. This is disturbing my retreat. So maybe I should look at this. So I fortunately had a very strong physical reaction in my heart. I could really feel this tension building up. This guy is a real monster. I didn't quite go that far, but anyway, it could have been. So I just began to look at it, breathe into it, try and be friendly to it, and about a week later, suddenly just shifted. The pressure lifted off a little bit, and I realized it wasn't anger at all. It was resentment. Oh, there's a long story in my life. The anger was just that momentary experience with this guy here, but underneath it was this resentment, and there's a long story through my life of resentment. And resentment, it's sort of like, almost like not quite unconscious, but it's background anger, aversion. Very hard to even articulate sometimes. But just recognizing that, it really was resentment, kind of opened up a bit more. But there was still some pressure there, and it kind of broadened out and lightened a bit, but wasn't gone yet. So looked at it again and breathed into this tightness in my chest and friendliness, tried to absorb it, open up to it. And another week, about a week later, 10 days later, it shifted too. It wasn't resentment, it was frustration. Wow, that's a long story in my life. Back to early childhood, that one. But it still wasn't over yet. There was still something there. So I still tried to follow the same procedure, trying to be aware of it, trying to step back, not identify with it, not trying to control it, get rid of it, just open to it, become more friendly, open, receptive to it. And finally that shifted, and there was terrible fear there. And when I recognize fear, it's a primal emotion. It's right back to the primal activity of the self. The self is a phony, and it wants to preserve this illusion of reality, so it throws up fear. And then when I could open to that, finally it took 10 days, or more, even 2 weeks even. Finally, the fear went away. It was just open light, and bliss and freedom. Nothing there. No self left. Of course, it didn't last very long, but then the fear came back, and there was frustration, and resentment, and the anger, and yeah, but it wasn't as compacted or as solid or as highly defined as before. Now I can see that it's, it is just been conditions building up, you see, compounding each other, around the very primal source of the self. And fear builds around it, and then to defend that, frustration and resentment and aversion, and they're all self-defense mechanisms, you see. And there isn't a self to begin with, So, but just to say, oh yeah, right, it's just, just let go of the self. But of course, it has a life of its own, as it were, built up through a whole lifetime of wrong relationship to our experiences. Then. So anyway, long story, short story. Here we are today, Ratnagiri. There's still 15 minutes left for any questions.
I wonder if you could say a few words about the difference between self and essence.
Well, how do you define essence?
I don't know, but I read it in your book.
Really?
Yes.
What page?
Well, I'm about a third of the way. I'm not
Essence.
enlightened yet. But something about the Buddha saying that the essence is something that travels with you through your reincarnations or something, whereas the self is...
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Well, that's what I thought you said.
No. That's another one of your misperceptions, maybe.
Okay. So there isn't a separation between essence and self in Buddhists?
Well, I don't know what the word essence is, what it refers to.
Yeah, that's why I didn't understand it,
Yeah.
because I didn't get a
Yeah.
difference.
I don't even,
All right, that's okay.
I can't relate it to any Pali word,
Vasana, the Vasana sort of traits.
It doesn't matter, I was puzzled, because I read that and I thought, well, what's the difference?
Yeah. I'm puzzled too.
Okay.
And
You
you
find
have
the
a
page, I can read.
It was fairly much in the beginning, it was about reincarnation.
We don't mention reincarnation, is it?
rebirth.
Rebirth, yeah. Because reincarnation literally means there's something is incarnate again and again, you see. But there isn't anything, it's a process. So we talk about the process of rebirth. There still is sort of, you can say habit tendencies. Through a lifetime with your action, your karma, you build certain habitual patterns of thinking and relating, and those continue. They just take another, they're like an energy, or maybe you can say maybe like an essence. And they have a certain force or energy to them, and then most of them are driven by, a desire to keep going, to maintain existence, to continue being something.
Yes.
And then it's so powerful it can reconstitute the four elemental qualities to a body. The different mental characteristics or functions come in. And when the body's growing, these mental functions come in. So it kind of reconstitutes another self, if you like. So it's not exactly the same, but there is similarities because it is directly associated. Just like, a plant, when it gives seeds, the seeds are similar to the plant, right? But they're probably not exactly. There's been modifications, there's been alterations of DNA or something other, genes or something other, but it's you won't plant a seed from there and get a mango tree, Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious about the process that you explained with unpacking the anger and then the anger leading to resentment and frustration. So, as I understand, you're talking about basically getting into a relaxed state and focusing the mind on this emotion for what it is, and then over time it naturally unravels and then kind of peels back the layer. Like, what's the action? Could you articulate the process a little bit more?
Well, there is, you know, there's several factors need to come together. Calmness is one of them. Basically, we're calming down the reactiveness to what we experience. Most of us we don't actually respond even skillfully, don't even respond properly to what we experience. We just react to it by our habit patterns, which have been conditioned since we're little children, you see. So calming that down, reactiveness, gives the possibility to relate to it differently, see it differently, and respond to it differently. But then it also requires, you know, like some supportive qualities I mentioned, like friendliness, because these various aspects of our being usually are buried deep in our psyche, and you know they're buried because we haven't dealt with them. They're very painful. We haven't dealt with them very skillfully, so we actually don't want to know them. You know, but unless you do, they're still working on us. You know, so we need to make some effort to try to, you know, dig them out, if it were, or become more conscious of them. But we're going against the flow, as it were, in a way, of our natural instincts. The natural instincts of the self is ignorance. I don't want to know this. I don't want to know this. I just want to keep playing this game, hopefully, and try to succeed the best I can. You know, but in the end, it's just a game, a charade. The ego is playing, the self is playing. Yeah? But the more you can develop these qualities, like basically the Eightfold Path, morality, meditation, wisdom, you know, then these are positive qualities which the Buddha has found, if we develop them, they do assist in this process of looking into the nature of the self at deeper levels. If we just, you know, kind of, how do you say, just think about it, we analyze it, we just use the thinking process. Thinking is also part of the self. So just using our brain to think about it is not enough. A lot of those early stages of development are just very primal emotion. Like a very young child, they don't think about what they do, they just experience at a very emotive, somatic level. You know, fear and anger and greed and these things, you know. They're hungry, the body just does it. They don't stop and think, I am hungry. If I do this, I'll get something, I'll get a sweet or something. They haven't got that in there. Not yet anyway, not till they're 4 or 5 years old. You know, but so your thinking won't reach it. Your concepts won't reach it. Because that was formed before you have a conceptual mind yet. Yeah. But awareness can expose it. Pure awareness, you know. Be aware of just what these kind of primal functions are. What's the feeling there? What's the feeling? What's the sensation in the body? And sometimes using some kind of body work at a somatic level can release them. There's a whole range of different possibilities.
So you're saying it's obviously really important to prepare through the process of virtue, generosity, and that kind of quietens the mind, calms the mind, which allows you to see more clearly, which allows you to unpack it in a more refined way.
Yep. And then, like I was saying on Thursday, that, you know, these positive qualities, like you can say, you know, a moral living, skillful living, and these things, they lighten the sense of, you know, if you live a very, you know, can you say moral or very skillful life, you have great confidence. Nobody's going to accuse you. Nobody's going to insult you or something because you say, "Oh, you killed an animal." I didn't. I know I didn't. You know, I keep this principle of harmlessness. You know, so you know it establishes a real foundation, a confident foundation in your life. You know, where if you did kill something, you know, and then there's a guilt in your mind. There's a worry there. Don't let anybody find out because I'm Buddhist and they'll find out and I'm not really a Buddhist. I did something wrong, you know, but it's still there in your mind, right? So, but if you keep the standards, no worries, you have complete confidence. You know, nobody can accuse you. You don't feel guilty. Yeah. you feel heartfelt, connection with all other living beings.
And you said that once you unraveled it and it came back, but came back in maybe a less intense way.
Yep.
Then what would the process be? Just reapplying the same thing from the beginning and looking at it again the second time, and then loosening until it's.
It's like you get the first glimpse. That's what I think what the Buddha's talking about, different levels of awakening, is that you get a first glimpse, and then you go, they say path and fruit. You follow the path, you get a little glimpse of it, then you have the fruit, the result of it, a sense of lightness and space and pleasant feeling for a while, then you forget about it. And the processes are still working in the background, they haven't been completely eliminated yet. Then back to the cushion again, back. Next stage of a light enlightenment or awakening, you see. Yeah. So like there's 4 stages basically of, to full enlightenment. So I mean, it's unless we get a really, really deep, profound insight, still the kind of the mechanisms are still in place, but we aren't feeding them, we aren't nourishing them so much anymore. We have different outlook, see? But if you don't keep up with the practice, then they gather more momentum and gather more strength and take over eventually again. And they say like the first stage of awakening, the stream enterer, they can forget the path for up to 7 lifetimes. Yeah. So, but you never really forget completely. So there's still some major shift in our psyche for the better, you see. Eventually you have to wait 7 lifetimes, depends how pleasant your lifetime is, but you finally get to it, go back to it again.
I'm very curious and interested in this principle of mindful attention and concentration. So what's occurred to me is that sometimes it seems that there's it's kind of incongruent, because if there's too much mindful attention concentration, well then a person can appear to be maybe not so joyful or not so friendly, because the focus is on the self. And I dance between, attending Buddhist teachings and so forth, but then I also attend church services, and I just see that in the church service, I don't know, there's a different type of mindfulness or something that's going on amongst the people compared to perhaps the sanghas sometimes. So I don't quite know what I'm asking, but I guess I'm just asking for your reflection on it, or your wisdom on that.
Well, there's many different ways to approach spiritual teachings, if you like.
Yeah.
I think at the root of all religions, they all are trying to guide people to the realization of what I say is selflessness, or beyond the self. And then there's different ways to do it. The Buddha, in Theravada, the Buddha did, you can say, formally he did approach it in what they call a negative way. It's not this, it's not that, you see. Whereas most of the theistic religions, they put it in a positive way. There's God, there's the kingdom of heaven, and all these positive things to aspire towards. Even Mahayana Buddhism is very positively orientated. They don't say no self, they say the greater self. But I think there is there's a strong possibility that people then, they then identify with the positive, you see. But I mean, it depends on the personality too. So sometimes the negative approach taken away, no permanent self, everything's impermanent. But before going to Asia, I studied a little bit about Buddhism at university, and so I knew about the basic 4 Noble Truths of Buddhism. There is unsatisfactoriness, a cause, cessation, a path. I was going to Thailand and to do a meditation retreat, and I thought, oh, Thailand is a Buddhist country. They must be terribly depressed all the time because they're always talking about dukkha, dukkha, suffering, 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 you know. And Thailand's called the land of smiles. And so, when I went there, people were always smiling and cheerful and joyful, and are they kidding themselves? Is this just a kind of a publicity stunt for tourists or what? Why can they be so cheerful when they're constantly reminded of suffering, 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 you know? And then one time I was talking to this man at the monastery. This elderly man used to come every day and help out the monks in the morning with a meal time. And he was there one morning, and I just thought of make conversation. He said, "How are you doing?" He said, "I'm suffering." And then he burst out laughing. And I said, "Is he for real?" And I realized that, okay, he knows about suffering, but he also knows the path out of suffering. And I realized that people in the West, they suffer anyway, but they don't have any path. Unless you choose Jesus, I guess, or something. But for the average person, doesn't have any way out, so don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about it. But the Thais, by acknowledging suffering, they know there is a way out of suffering too, the Four Noble Truths. Like when Buddhism was in England, for example, in the beginning, many Western people, they really got onto the thing about Buddhism, about suffering, suffering, and they forgot about the cessation of suffering. So they used to go on and on about suffering, 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 and became really depressives, really. So I just went and said to them, he said, "You forgot about the cessation of suffering, right? That's part of the Four Noble Truths. There's a path. There's something you can do about your suffering. You aren't helpless." So like this man, I'm suffering. I know it now. And when you know it, when you can acknowledge it, now you can do something about it. It's like when you have a disease and you actually know what the disease is, then I can take the medicine for it. But if I don't know what the disease is, if I don't know I've got malaria or something, I don't take the right medicine. But as soon as you can acknowledge, oh, this is what life is about. There is life. There is unsatisfactoriness in life. It's not all suffering. There's joy in life too. But this joy is also unsatisfactory. It's not there forever. But when you know that, okay, now what can I do about it? Okay, if I do meditation and I develop the Eightfold Path, then I can realize the cessation of suffering. It's in your hands, right there. But if you don't even notice it, you don't even acknowledge it first that you're suffering. You're still suffering, but you don't know it. So I think that's why the Thais can be so cheerful about suffering. Not to mention that they always hope that there's heaven first before Nibbana, right? You go to heaven first and have a good party there, and then you go to Nirvana later. Ajahn Chah used to joke that some people would say the Thais know about going to practicing the Eightfold Path and then realizing Nirvana, Nibbana. But some would say, well, I don't want to rush there too quickly. I want to have a party first. I want to enjoy life first, up in heaven. Because they see Nibbana, Nirvana, Nibbana is nothing there, emptiness, right? But heaven is peace and pleasant and joyful and celebration. You just got to make sure that you get there,
Do we have time for another question? Or we...
I'm not going anywhere, but you guys are going places, aren't you? You got to go home.
Keep it quick, I guess.
Yeah.
As we're getting ready to leave, what would you say is the most important thing that we should keep in mind? Is it mindfulness of the self-making and investigating, when we're identifying as a self and trying to just explore that? What's the main thing that we can do?
Well, I think most important is to have something which you can relate to easily, that you can keep going. If it's too kind of like probably in this time, some people have heard things which are just over their head, beyond them. So that you go home and you think, what? I was there for a whole day. What did happen there anyway? What did he say? So, but maybe there's a few things that did strike you. Oh, right, yeah. Be aware of this I arising. I see with the senses, the sense of I arises. And then go back to just seeing rather than I seeing and I liking and I wanting and blah, 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 blah. Just seeing.
So the more we're aware of that, the better chance we have of getting beyond the I making.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
letting
if
go.
you see that it's just based upon this misperception, if you like, the I comes up and then, oh, I like this, I want that, I want blah, blah, blah. You build a whole life story around it. And it's just based upon seeing something. And maybe what you saw, you missaw it. You didn't see it correctly at all, So, oops, back to basics again. So it can help you just to kind of back to basics, back to just seeing. That's the reality. But all the I being this and I being that and I wanting this and I wanting that, it's all your fiction story, It makes a good novel maybe, but do you want to be in a novel or you want to be in reality,
So be aware when that story starts happening. It's like,
Yes.
hang on, that's just a story.
Just a story, yeah. And maybe you can say, well, if I want to write a fiction book, this is a good story, write it down. But if I don't want to be in a fiction, I think I'll just stay in reality, thank you. Very, very simple, very peaceful, very few problems. Just seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, okay, fine. End of story. Could be boring, but peaceful. Yeah. So whatever you can connect with reasonably easily, because you go back to your life situation and there's going to be a lot more to deal with than just your breathing, right? Yeah. So something you can keep connected with and coming back to again and again, and it does take practice. Yeah. Keeping connected with it and keeping going with the practice. And then when you realize, okay, this I fairly well connected with and can keep going with, perhaps I can extend it a bit further. So then you can look in the book. The next exercise, the next stage. Okay.
So on behalf of the whole group, Ajahn, thank you for being with us today, and also on the Thursday night and sharing with us some teachings, guidance, especially around being beyond eye making. So we'll be able to reflect further on that from your book. So thank you for being and sharing your experience and learnings, and hope to see you back here sometime soon. Good.
Okay, no
And
promises.
also thanks to everyone for coming and sharing today, and for the lovely food that you bought, and also the financial dana support, which will go to provide the Ajahns ticket up and down, and helping him at the monastery as well. And hope to see you again on Thursday night, or the next retreat day, which is on the Sunday the 19th of May. Good, and feel free to come and get a book from Ajahn if you wish. Thank you.